Good day, everyone. Happy Sunday to everybody watching. And if you're watching this tomorrow, happy Monday, or whenever you're watching it, happy day. My name is Amodati Okufishola, and I'm here to talk about this book. I'm pretty excited to be doing this. It's not a review, it's just something that I guess like it's sort of like a review, I guess. And I have been thinking of talking about this book for a while now, and finally done reading the book back to back. And I think that it's worth discussing. One of the reasons why I actually got the book was like just to know, what is really happening in society, and in a way, like this book is it's fiction, but the author George Orwell wrote it, you know, trying to express himself to warn the population about what is likely to happen, which I think is already happening already. So if you're interested in talking about, or if you're interested in listening to a review about 1984 by George Orwell, which is a very interesting book, then you can keep watching. If not, I appreciate your presence here. So I'm just gonna talk about this, and we're probably gonna give reference to the word of the Lord regarding this book. I already sort of give like a summary about the book in one of my previous videos, just talking about the character Winston, um, and it's very very good. Okay. um, so the main character, which is Winston, is in a country called Oceania. And Oceania is at war with Ustasia, and it's kind of like, you know, a fictional country. And so basically, this character is very discontent with life. Okay, he's in this space that feels like as if it's a bubble, and it's kind of like giving North Korea just how they are isolated from the outside world, and they are controlled by their government. And in the book it described the government as big brother. And as I'm talking about this, I wanted to reflect on the society and literally what's going on in and around you. Again, like on this channel I do talk about the word of the Lord, and you will find me, I don't know why my belly is crumbling. um but you'd also find me talking about literary works, which is something that I'm very passionate about, because I do have an eye for books that are not like anyhow books, like books that are pretty good, you know, for you to see the world through. So yeah, again, the book is by George Orwell, 1984. So yeah, and again, Oceania is controlled by Big Brother. And I'm gonna read from the text is description of Oceania. But then this passage or this text that I'm gonna be reading is a text from a book that was gotten by Winston. And I kind of feel like as if I should give you a summary, even though I've given you a summary already about, the book. Okay, let's just do a summary. I talked about, Winston, like is not happy about the place that he's living, um, Oceana. And Winston really like is married to, a woman, is not very happy. The lady seems to be submissive. Oceana's um it's kind of like a ministry. Oftentimes describe Ocean as a ministry. They do have like rules and regulation. Um, Religion was abolished in Oceania, or is abolished in Oceania. Like they didn't really have any freedom. The language was um was actually canonized. Like they were many words that were taken out of you know the language, well, English language, right? Essentially, it's English language, but there were words that were taken out of, the languages to control the emotions of the people, because, you can only, um, you can only believe what you express. You can only act on what you're able to express. And so they through manipulation of like languages, they were able to control the emotions of the people, their thoughts, their actions. People could only express themselves to a certain degree. And this is literally, it's true. Like English language didn't used to, it has been canonized. Like there are many words in the English language that don't exist now. Like if you read Shakespeare's books, you would see that there are many different words that were used to that Shakespeare used to express himself in those days that don't exist now. And so Orwell is kind of warning the people of really what's going on in the underground. Um, there were different ministries. Again, like Winston will talk about this in like a very interesting point of view. There were many different ministries. There are ministries of love. The ministry of plenty. Ouch. And in this, it's in Oceania. Like things are not always as it is. It's always like a mirage of what it is. It's all fake. Okay, so when they say there is freedom, they give the people like a illusion of how great Oceania is. In fact, like there's patriotism in Oceania where like there is something called a moment of hatred where you know the there's a speaker that comes on and then there's a noise blasting from the speaker where like it's a time of hatred where they hate on the other you know um nations like Ustasia and Eurasia, and those ones were the nations that were fighting against them. So they would you know yell and like just everyone would hate on them. But Winston was that one that like it just was very very curious. Like Oceania was a place where people were so patriotic to the point where if a young child, like a very young child, like I'm talking about 2 3 years old, was to hear somebody talk bad about Oceania, they will report to the authorities and the authorities will deal with that person. And usually what happens is they will just take that person to the jail. The family is not going to see them anymore. And oftentimes like it oftentimes ends in death or something, okay, if they're not able to do something to them. And reading the book, like I was kind of curious, like what do they do to these people, right? And the people that are um the crime that they classify this as, like you not being patriotic, is it is called a thought crime. And there were people that were actually called a thought police. I think that's the term that was used. It's quite a while that I finished the book. Um, but yeah, I think they were called thought police. They lived in a society, okay, but they used metaphysics to manipulate things. Okay, they did metaphysics. If you read in the text, really, there was metaphysics happening, which is like if you're Nigerian or anywhere, it's like juju. You use like weird things to try to get into, like to know things that bare people don't really know. People are not really who they are. They're spies all over. Your neighbor might not really be your neighbor. It might just be a thought police, right? Um, that is likely to gather information about you and like just rat you out. And then in the society, like it's not very apparent that this is what's happening, but like it's really like it is it is happening right now. And talking about obstacles and places placed in your way, and yeah, even in the dreams as well, polluted um atmospheres, attacks in the dreams and things like that. Why am I actually sharing or doing a review about this book is because of, I believe that as Christians, if we're able to really understand our society, that we can be able to pray concerning certain things, but also be able to act from a place of authority. um so yeah, I'm very much into like political books and things like that. So me personally, like, and I know that there are other people too that a lot of people that are attacked in the dreams, and these are only like works of metaphysics, in the uni, like these were things that were actually marketed right to me. Okay. Books, there are many books about metaphysics, in society. The books about witchcraft. um uh the other one is alchemy, right? People talk about manifestation all the time. There's even one too that talk about, like, a dream catcher, which is something that, like, to catch your dreams, to help, you know get away those dreams that are sent to you as an attack against you and things like that. So these are, like, you know these it's not new. None of these things is not new. I'm just saying, like, what this is what's happening. Like, the government, they use, like, even in Canada, in Western countries, they use metaphysics for control. And so, back to the summary, is just talking about, what's going on there. Like, there is, extreme control, where, like, the food that they eat is controlled. The things that they used to, like, enjoy, like chocolates, like, alcohol, certain type of, like, alcohol, like certain type of, like, food, they don't really enjoy it anymore. Women don't wear makeup. It was just boring. It was not really cutting it for Winston. And he just knew that there was something more. Even in his own department, what he did was he developed, Newspeak. That was, like, their language. And what he also did, I don't think he developed Newspeak. What he did was he was in charge of, like, canonization. So he worked on um, helping to change truth. So he was in charge of, like, you know, changing what really is the truth. If that makes sense. Like, um, so if Big Brother wanted the people to believe that, for example, freedom is slavery, they will have to go into the database dating back to, like, like, maybe, like, 2 centuries, or I don't know, maybe just, like, really far back. And they would have to, blot it out. They would have to blot it out, write it, and just, like, edit it. So they were constantly doing that over and over again. If another example is that somebody was a traitor, that had committed a thought crime, which is, like, by not being patriotic, or, like, wanting to be opposing the party, then they will be dealt with, like, they will be taken out. And we're going to talk about how, Big Brother really tries to get um their their uh aim, or their goals met, right? So the people really are the goals of Big Brother, and you can also call them a party. Okay, they're collective. And I'm going to read a passage in the text. And obviously, I talked about this in the last video, just about how Winston was actually, like, a cheater. Like, he was, like, you know just wanting to rebel. Like, he just wanted to see what was on the other end. And he actually was cheating with the woman, I believe her name was Julia. And um he thought that he loved her. Like, they were, like, going back and forth. They were actually having sexual intercourse the in one of the rooms of a man that he met in a public space. And this was going on for a while. And how we even got to meet Julia was, like, she was the one that actually approached him, and said that she thought that he was kind of like an outsider. And she told him that she loved him, like, right off the back, and she'd been watching him and things like that. And then he just started to follow the lead for some reason. And then they got to building a sexual relationship. And it kind of grew. And he often talks about how, like, every time, like, he is in the room, in that dingy room, right, it kind of felt like as if, like, that was their own world. Even though he knew that it wasn't going to amount to anything, like, this was, kind of as real as it can get. And Winston, again, like, he separated from his wife. Pretty, like, you know just very discontent in life, period. Okay. um so he got caught, by the way. I'm just, like, say that off the back, like, he got caught. Again, like big brothers, like they're everywhere is what Winston is trying to say. Like there's nothing that you can try to hide from big brother. And like if you are opposed to what big brother aim is about, then you're going to be a target. And what is big brother's aim? You will ask big brother, but they don't believe in like the normal human emotions, because they believe that the goal of big brother is literally trying to find an emotion that will garner, that will promote a collective human emotion. And the one of the like the one of the deepest human emotions that can bring about collectivism collectivism, okay, is cruelty and hatred, because it is garnered by fear. Okay, once people are motivated by fear than anything, they're not really motivated by love. They're really motivated by fear, because of fear stems from selfishness. It stems from individualism. It really stems from like you trying to survive. So big brother is really trying to bring out the animalistic side of human beings. And so big brother will oftentimes promote cruelty. They promote like you do what you can to basically like survive and things like that. So they are pretty, yeah, they're pretty brash. Okay. um so I'm just gonna kind of read a text from you know the book. um Let me see here. I'm gonna just read the text that really talks about what big brother really are. And as I'm talking about the text, like I just kind of want you to reflect on your life and reflect on like, you know, yeah, just your life. Like if you are not against, like if you're not for cruelty, if you're not for hatred, like they will attack you, not even likely to attack you. And one of the ways that what the main approach in which big brother would attack you is by they don't believe in um killing people or like cutting people's heads, which is something that they actually did. Like back in the days with the Roman Catholic Church, like if you were against the doctrine of the church, like they will like cut your head or something. Like they would they would make sure that you were dealt with, which that the Roman Catholic Church back then, they were really like the power. Big brother, one of their aims is to stay in power. They did not want to leave. Okay. And power it's very intoxicating. Okay. um and so one of the ways that they actually did this was that they wouldn't rather back kill you. um you went like imprisoned for like what they wanted to do was that they wanted to completely and utterly like brainwash you to love big brother, to love what they love, to love cruelty, to love hatred. It's they want to basically like, which is what they've done to the entire population through you know propaganda and mass manipulation of people. um so yeah, like they want to brainwash people, and they would do this through metaphysics, through attacking you in the dream, creating simulations in your dream, making you to start to act as something that you're not, which is attacking your identity. I know that there are a lot of ministers out there that have really talked about this topic, um, but many different ways in which they do um, deprivation, yeah, to cause about desperation, um, to make one begin to act in an animalistic way. um, they bring about they try to instigate fear, like to perpetuate fear. Is something that agents of big brother will likely do. um so we're just gonna read from the text, like Big Brother. And this again is our reality. If you're a Christian, you understand what I'm talking about. Like Big Brothers, they have the agents everywhere. Like people do act on hatred and cruelty and fear. Like that is literally like the kind of like the mark of what it means um to be like a, I guess, like a firm, strong person. Like you know, yeah, like if you're full of like you think about the fights, right? If you're watching, it's not is it UFC? I don't know if it's UFC or MMA, but the fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, right? Like that, and when he was saying to Mike Tyson, like, "You're gonna die," like, even though Mike Tyson slapped him. Do you know what I mean? Like that hatred is what the company, the brand is wanting to market to people. Like that's what they want. They want like that hatred, that cruelty, like someone that's like wicked and mean, and they want that. That's what they want. Okay. Also, like again, like I believe that the will of the Lord will, will manifest itself. um and also like Russia, and like kind of like saying that, yeah, Donald Trump is like the man. It's like it sees Donald Trump as like, yeah, like a firm figure, cruel, and which is something that Jesus Christ wasn't like regarded as, because Jesus Christ was like very loving. People thought that, really, you're the savior, are you really serious right now? But this is literally like what this is the persona, the personality that is glorified in society, right? um so I guess like I don't essentially, like, I'm just sharing this, but s- another reason why I think that this review is also important is because I want you to also look at your leaders and kind of see, do you actually see the love of God in them? Like, is your leader actually leading by creating fear in you? Like, you feeling like fear one time, if your leader is talking to you and feeling fear one time, two times, three times, like, have you not gotten that, as a prompter inside of you? Like, you need to pay attention to not the grand moments, but like the moment, right? The little moments. Um, and you would know when a leader is a bad leader, right? You would know when a leader is one to want to create a cult-like environment. You would know a leader that wants to be glorified. Like the big brothers are the ones that really, like, they do have an agenda, which is like to stay in power. They were power hungry, okay. um and so, yeah, I'm just gonna read. It says, every success, every achievement, every victory, every scientific discovery, every all knowledge, all wisdom, all happiness, all virtue are held to issue directly from his leadership and inspiration. Okay, this is the big brother. So the big brother is described in a singular, you know, way. Okay. It says all success, all achievement, all victory, everything, like all the knowledge, right, is direct, is held to issue, right? Is taking credit, for it in his leadership and his inspiration. I've heard somewhere somebody say that if the devil cannot destroy what God is doing, they will try to be part of it. I've heard that, really, like, if the devil cannot destroy what God is doing, they would try to be part of it. They would try to kind of like encourage it and to support it until that moment comes, until that opportunity comes for them to destroy it. And then you're gonna see the devil's real self. So the devil can pretend to be a sheep when he's really, a serpent. It says nobody has ever seen Big Brother, but all we can see are the agents of Big Brother. Even the thought police, they are in disguise. The person that rat out Vic Winston and his concubine Julia was the old man, but all the while the man wasn't an old man at all. He was just pretending to be an old man. So it was all like a setup. Okay. So it's just like people are not really who they are in society because of the way society is knit together. Like, if you see someone that is really operating from love and is willing to love you, like, you know, why is it so hard for you to accept that? And it's pretty interesting, like, because again, it's hard because people mask. Okay. It says, It is a face on the hoardings, a voice on the telescreen, right? And Big Brother is one that can talk and you can hear him, right? Like you can talk and you can hear him. It's pretty creepy. um, so he says we may be reasonably sure that he will never die, and there is already considerable uncertainties as to when he was born. Nobody knows. Big Brother is the guise in which the party chooses to exhibit itself to the world. Its function is to act as a focusing point for love, fear, and reverence, emotions which are most easily felt towards an individual than towards an organization. So they focused on like really the individual. It says below Big Brother comes the inner party. Its numbers limited to 6 million or something less than 2% of the population of Oceania. So this people, Big Brother or like the inner party, I mean, the Big Brother comes from the inner party, and we know that Big Brother is kind of like a tool, right, for control by the inner party. So Big Brother, um, or should I say, the inner party are really like people in charge, right? They're everywhere, right? They are like a collective number of people that are like very networked and very like very strategic, very there's a word like they're very like connected, but like perfectly like connected. There's a perfect word to describe what I'm trying to say, but I can't really like remember right now, right? And it says below the inner party comes the outer party. So there's an inner party and there's an outer party, right? Which if the inner party is described as the brain of the state, may be justly likened to the ants. It says below that comes the dumb masses, whom we habitually refer to as the pros. Okay, this kind of reminds me of like the British politics too. You'd see it, but again, like it's literally like everywhere. So I'm just gonna read that again. It says, below the inner party comes the outer party, which, if the inner party is described as the brain of the state, may be justly likened to the ants, right? So the outer party is kind of like the ant, and it says below that comes the dumb. It says the dumb masses, whom we habitually refer to as the pros. These are the people numbering perhaps 85% of the population. In terms of our earlier classification, the pro are the low. So these are like the low class people. So it says for the slave population of the equatorial lands who pass constantly from conqueror to conqueror are not a permanent but or necessary part of the structure. So these are like they regard them as not important. Okay. It says, in principle, a membership of these three groups is not hereditary. The child of inner party parents is in theory not born into the inner party. Admission to either branch of the party is by examination, right? Taken at the age of 16. Now, is there any race discrimination or any marked domination, right, of one province by another? Jews, Negroes, South Americans of pure Indian blood are to be found in the highest ranks of the party, and the administrators of any area are always drawn in from the inhabitants of that land. So the administrators of that of any area are always drawn from the inhabitants of that land. It says in no part of Oceania do the inhabitants have the feeling that they are a colonial population ruled from a distant capital. So the administrators of this inner party, they have to be from the area themselves, because they should be able to understand the code of that nation, of that community. Because if they don't know it, the people of Oceania would know that the person that is literally giving us, um, you know, a prompting of what to think, what to feel, is not really from where we're from, right? So again, this all concepts, right, of leadership, of like ruling people, of governing over people, the strategy in which people do it is is not the strategy that was actually depicted in this book is nothing. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. In the University of what's the name of this of Chicago, in the Faculty of Social Science, it talks about just how in writing you need to be able to know the code of a particular community that you're writing to, so that you can be able to persuade them to really accept and not just really like know have the knowledge, but to do it. So you're actually like perpetuating an action in your method of writing. It's not just about the content. And Yeah, so that's just like I've given you kind of a brief, you know, um, a brief summary, or like they've given you a brief reading of who the Big Brothers are. Um, so again, most people will write a book, or like they would create a certain ecosystem, or you know create a certain like group or community because they want to be known for a long period of time. Think about Aristotle, right? Or Socrates. Like they created, all this content. They even like mentored people, not because of like, oh, I just want to do it because I just like love you so much. No, they were building their own legacy, and like they want to be like, even though they were not alive, they want to sit on that, power for as long as possible. And this is literally everybody. Well, most people, right? um, so I wanted to read another one, just kind of like describing like what exactly is going on in society, and like literally how, you know, this narcissistic approach, which we know is in the church today because of leaders that are not surrendered to the leading of the Lord, um, how it's really affecting the people, and the consequences of it in society, right? And again, the corruption of the leaders is bringing about like even is detrimental to the masses, right? Like, and in a way, like, okay, fine, that's good and dandy, but it's and it talks about it in the book that it's people's responsibility, like it's your responsibility to want to be able to think for yourself, because if you don't think for yourself, then like you are really just a slave yourself. Okay. And it's pretty interesting, very interesting. My mind is going somewhere else, but I'm gonna keep it in that, like, I wouldn't say a box, but just focus, right? um so I'm gonna read here, just talking about like what what are we talking about? Okay. It says after the revolutionary period of the 50s and 60s, society regrouped itself as always into high, middle, and low. But the new high group, unlike all its forerunners, did not act upon instinct, um, but knew what was needed to safeguard its position. It had long been realized that the only secure basis for oligarchy is collectivism. Okay, collectivism, right? Collectivism. Okay, it's unity. It's like forceful, forceful action or manifestation of unity. And it says wealth and privilege are most easily defended when they are possessed jointly. And this is really important. A person can be rich, does not mean that the person is going to stay rich. If you want to be rich, you have to be able to defend your wealth. In order for you to defend your wealth, you need to what? You need to be able to build, you know, a linkage of people. Like I'm talking about a linkage of people to build an empire. You need a lawyer with you, like have you watched Suits? You need like people that can, like a team of like crazy hungry people like yourself. And it says the so-called abolition of private property, which took place in the middle years of the century, meant, in effect, the concentration, sorry, of property in far fewer lands than before. It says, but with this difference, that the new owners were a group instead of a masses of individuals. Think about condos, like if you want to buy a condo, is like in a whole building, there are many different owners of, different units. And these are people that are like come together to actually like own the entire building, right? And it says, individually, no member of the party owns anything except petty personal belongings. Collectively, the party owns everything in Oceania because it controls everything and disposes of the products as it thinks fit. In the years following the revolution, it was able to step into this commanding position almost unopposed because the whole process was represented as an act of collectivization. It had always been assumed that if the capitalist class were expropriated, socialism will follow. And unquestionably, the capitalists had been expropriated. Factories, mines, land, houses, transport, everything had been taken away from them. And since these things were no longer private property, it followed that they must be public property. Song, Ingsoc, which grew out of the earlier socialist movement and inherits its phraseology, has in fact carried out the main item of in the socialist program, with the results foreseen and intended beforehand, that economic inequality had been made permanent. And I feel like when you're reading this, you're like, it's very clear that if we're to go into the approach of like capitalism or socialism, like it just feels like it's like, those two, methods or types of regime, right? It's not going to bring forth, equality at the end of the day. Because, and I talked about this, in one of the videos that I did. And I talked about the reality check. If you can look at that too, I talked about peace and really like what we're in for. Okay, like our peace is really in Christ Jesus as Christians. And this is like really like the main goal of Big Brother, like why they are really literally trying to scrap out true religion. I'm talking about like not religion, I'm talking about Christianity, because like religion is a total different thing, right? About Christianity, right? And it talked about, how they talked about martyrs and like people that are really like serving the Lord and have really surrendered to the Lord. They talked about strategies and how to like literally defeat them by brainwash. um so yeah, like this is like, it's pretty interesting. Like there is no um man's method of actually creating, unity is never going to work out. Like it's just a failure. Like our strategies are, smart ideas, the research that we make, the sciences, the technology can never amount to nothing. Okay. And I was talking about peace. UN's United Nations definition of what peace really means. If you, I talked about that already. Talks about like literally educating, re-educating people, re-institutionalizing people, and try to bring people to think the same thing, right? And in this book, it's again Oceania. They basically took a Oceania is like a large sample. If we're to look at this in a research point of view, a large sample that was actually taken, and I feel like in a sense the research was sort of like, successful, except like there were some, you know, externals, there were some, like for example, Winston, and there were others like Winston to begin with. And so it wasn't like 100% successful, but in the grand scale of things, like they actually did a pretty good job. Okay. Social media is one way that they actually promote propaganda. People don't actually look at, information, like real information, and try to sit with the information and react accordingly. Um, so, and again, like a lot of things that's happening in today's society, that is promoting uniformity, okay, is not ordinary. These are things that are, beyond the our capacity, human capacity, that we can only surpass if we begin to act through the help of the Holy Spirit. And if you are opposed to the party, okay, the inner party, to Big Brother, okay, the agenda of the Big Brother, if you're opposed to it, you will experience, backlash. You will experience backlash. And I personally, like, even me sharing this video right now, it is, obviously, like, I'm expecting for there to be a backlash, okay? But I ultimately just want to pass forward the message of George Orwell, just saying that, all of the things that we're saying, the propaganda in the news, in society, talking about numerology, Christians adapting that idea that, oh, when you see 111, it's meaning this, or when you see this and that, like, it means that. That is only but a language that is being spoken to you. And if you believe that, you are part of, their programming. And then in a way, you are being washed. If you read the text, and you would see just how, you know and we're going to read that part too, just how Winston was literally interrogated, like, it was tortured, like tortured and treated like a dog, just because they were trying to change his mindset. They were trying to literally force him to think a certain way, right? And to betray himself. So I'm going to start here. Some dreadful thing which had lain embedded in the future had somehow been skipped over and had not happened. Everything was all right. There was no more pain. The last detail of my life was laid bare, understood, forgiven. It was starting up from the plank bed in the half certainty that he had heard O'Brien's voice. O'Brien was the one that Winston went to when he and his concubine thought that, they had kind of figured out this, like, they were in sync with, like, what they thought their society was about, Big Brother, and, like, what was going on. And they thought that, they could confide in somebody, that Winston thought that he could confide in someone at work, which was O'Brien. Um and O'Brien was just like someone that was kind of put in his way to get him to confess all the things that he had been doing. It was just it was just a setup, right? Everything was just a setup. And again, we talked about the metaphysics that's going on, because, like, in a rational sense, like, Winston should have never been caught, because, yeah, he should have just never been caught. But again, we know that, there were, and it was mentioned in the book, metaphysics that was going on to really discover, what was happening. Like, and the top police were not just, like, acting from, like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to eavesdrop and hear what you're trying to say," and things like that. But, like, no, like, people were going through simulations in their dreams that caused them to begin to murder stuff from their dream. A man in the text was in the jail, the same prison that Winston was in. And when Winston was striking a conversation with him, the man said that he was in the prison because of, in his dream, he was having a dream, and he said something like, he hit Big Brother, and his daughter actually went to report him to the police, and they came and took him, and now he's going to be, interrogated too. So as he was talking, like, to Winston, he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that I was caught. I'm like, I really just, like, oh, like as if, like, it's like a, well, thank God I was caught, like, I don't want to go in that route." And yeah, so the brainwash, right? And it's just like, I'm glad that they're going to take the stain out. So, yeah, like, the things that is being uttered in the dream, people hearing the voices in the wall, you know life is more spiritual than physical, right? So again, like, I think, like, it's a good idea to pay attention to your simulations, which is like your dream simulations, whether, like, you think they're, like, um important or not. Yeah, things that you, for example, I would dream a dream, and I would go on my Instagram, and I would kind of see, like, the theme of the dream manifesting on my algorithm. So, yeah, they've gotten a lot wiser with the technology, just some form of, like, metaphysics or alchemy as well. So a lot of the coding that goes into what you're doing is pretty demonic. I don't know what the Lord is actually leading us as a church to navigate certain things. And I'm not really rooting for, this person I'm going to mention. I'm not, I'm not, I shouldn't say I'm not rooting for the person. I wish good for that person. You know what I mean? Like, do you be good? Like, I'm not judging you. But while I was going to Pastor Chris's church, he had his own social media, which was like King's Chat, which is like a Christian social media that was created. So I think us starting our own thing would be really essential to kind of remind ourselves and to remind ourselves of who we are and keep our identity and keep and press into that revolution, because we are fighting an enemy. And it feels like as if every time we come to social media, we are faced with the enemy. Like, we're faced with him and we have to fight. And a lot of people like go on social media and they don't really think about, like, I'm going into social media, like I'm going to fight something that, has been literally been waiting for me, like to fight me. And it's fighting not me personally, like fighting my mind. Right? What the enemy wants to do is your mind. He wants to defeat your mind. If he can defeat your mind, you are smokes. Okay. So again, the enemy uses cruelty to do that. Like, pitches people against each other to bring about cruelty, and not it demonizes people. Fear is a one major thing, right? Fear is one major thing to make people to succumb and be submissive, or worse, be subservient, right? And the other one is hatred, right? If you can hate something, if you can really hate the thing, that hatred controls you, makes you want to do things, you know. There is no power in hatred. Hatred is actually like, it's a power that takes over you, and that fear too. Like, you think somebody, if you think that somebody is gunning for you or things like that, like, you're likely to begin to like see that person in a certain way that controls, like, it's literally like reroutes or changes the way you think. And you begin to think from a perspective, and it's not just about that person. You begin to, it's like a filter that's now placed on your eyes to literally see the world from. That's what the devil wants. Right. um So we're just gonna start, right? I've talked about what O'Brien is. O'Brien was, again, this was a setup, and O'Brien is gonna be his interrogator. It says all through his interrogation, although he had never seen him at this point, he didn't know that it was O'Brien. O'Brien was the one that gave him the book to that he should read to gain more understanding on, like, what it meant to oppose the inner party. But it was all a setup, right? Even in the meeting that they had with Julia, like, the O'Brien made them to make a sort of like an agreement, like he asked him a certain question, like, if I asked you to kill um million or children, for example, if I asked you to kill children in support of this cause to defeat the inner party, will you do it? And he said yes. Many things like that, like atrocities that was asked from Winston and Julia, like, they agreed, like they said yes. Okay. So they actually thought that they were fighting a good cause, but they didn't really know that it was on the setup. And it says, although he says he had never seen him before, he had had the feeling that O'Brien was at his elbow, just out of sight. It was O'Brien who was directing everything. It was he who set the guards onto Winston and who prevented them from killing him. It was he who decided when Winston should scream with pain, when he should have a respite, when he should be fed, when he should sleep, when the drug should be pumped into his arm. It was he who asked the questions and suggested the answers. He was the tormentor, he was the protector, it was the inquisitor, it was the friend. And once Winston could not remember whether it was in drugged sleep or in normal sleep or even in a moment of wakefulness, a voice murmured in his ear, "Don't worry, Winston, you're in my keeping. For 7 years I've watched over him. Now the turning point has come. I shall save you. I shall make you perfect." He was not sure whether it was Brian's voice, but it was the same voice that had said to him, "We shall meet in a place where there is no darkness," in that other dream 7 years ago. So that is what I'm trying to say. So again, like, there are some dreams that you would have that, that will manifest themselves. And this we're talking about metaphysics. This book is like deeper than like the eye can actually admit. And I feel like, anyone that reads this and is aware of spiritual things will and can critically analyze things will get what George Orwell is trying to say. So Winston here, he had a dream like 7 years ago, and it was this same voice, and it's like the same voice was speaking to him and telling him that, you know, and I guess like in the dream was like a series of events that did happen in his life that manifested itself that Winston did not remember. It seemed like he had had the dream, but he didn't remember. And again, like it's always good that if you dream and you don't remember, just cancel the dream anyways, because you don't really remember. And this is like, spiritual manipulation too, you know? And it's like, yeah, like 7 years ago, he had this dream. And in the dream, it's this person that literally is sitting over his head, right? And is controlling his every action. And the entire goal was to bring Winston to be subservient, to bring Winston to obey the inner party, to obey the agenda, to do the agenda. And you can imagine like the job that Winston is doing currently, like, you know, is canonizing very important documents, is canonizing very important, like historical, you know, documents, documentations that build history, you know. His job is to canonize it and to lie, you know. And so for someone that is doing that type of job, you can imagine that your bosses would be like, are you sure this person's on our side? Like, are you sure this person is really like filtered, right? Because ultimately, like, if you have a company, what you're looking for is to really like, and it's in every fiber of societies, in every fiber of community, um you know in the banks, they have their own coding, they have a way that they talk. They expect that you will speak that language, they expect that you're going to have the same attitude and character and work in that ministry. It is a ministry. Whatever work that you're doing, it is a ministry, whether you believe it or not. You're 9 to 5, like you're performing something, like you're doing, it's a ministry that you are partaking in, right? And so they expect that he's going to think a certain way. They expect that he's going to like perform and do things a certain way and really think a certain way. But Winston, like it's been, I don't know, maybe years that's been working there. And this dream was imputed 7 years ago. Like it took 7 years for it to actually manifest itself, right? Because things would, I mean, it might be like it's just a period of time for it to actually like manifest itself, right? But ultimately in the book, like, um if you see in the next page, in the interrogation, they kept asking Winston like, 2 plus 2 is what? Is 5. They were trying to literally um convince him that 2 plus 2 is 5. And eventually, it was a back and forth, interaction where like if he argued that 2 plus 2 is not 5, but it's 4. And in the process, he's going to get tortured. So it wasn't just the mental torture, but it was also the physical torture that I was going through. And all of this brought him to a place where he finally kind of succumbed, and he was like, "Do you know what? Like, 2 plus 2 is eventually, essentially 5." And finally, he loved Big Brother. So the book is not essentially like an happy-go-lucky book. Winston is a sinner. Like it doesn't really have the power of the Holy Spirit to help him overcome these things, help him overcome the agenda of the enemy. But I think that this book was a means in which George Orwell really did try to warn people from his own experiences, from what he's seen. And I kind of feel like, I see like he was speaking through about his life through the lens of the character Winston. So these are things that are happening in society, right? It's nothing new. Like the enemy, people in power, like they want to be in power and they'll do whatever it takes to be in power. So ultimately, like I think it's very important that you kind of like maybe like look at your leaders and kind of see, because you're not a pole or like a log of wood that is like nailed somewhere, like I think it's really important because this is your life, and just like Jeremiah like was complaining, like it's the pastures that he had were the ones that literally like were leading him in a place like in a place that he doesn't want to be in. And I would always be an advocate for leaders. Like, can you look at your leader and can you see the love of Christ in your leader? is your leader? Meek? Is he calm? Is he someone that is you're like encouraged to talk to? Is he approachable? Like, is he like loving? And being a leader is not easy. Like, I'm telling you, like, I've been to one Baptist church like that internal. The leader was, I'm talking about, like, it was very, very meek, right? Like, you can see the congregation like literally walking over him, right? It wasn't something that I saw like in the first time I went there, was I was just going like there and participating in, like, small gatherings. Like, you will see, the things that's going on. It's so gentle and so meek, to the point that like they will kind of just do their thing. And I can't really tell you what they do, but you can see when they're walking over someone. But he remained, you know very meek, and he kept that position of a servant. There are not a lot of leaders out there that could take that position, that can take up that role of a servant like leadership, like of a servant like leader. Like, nah, leaders out there want to be the ones that are praised, glorified, the ones that are like, oh, like, you did something, you prayed and the Lord answered, and you want the person that you prayed for to come and glorify you or give you money and tell you that, if not for your prayers and this and that. It's like, no, but God is the one in charge. God is the one in charge. And so this is the warfare that we're fighting, every single day. I just really had that prompting to really share this book. I would suggest this to, like, people out there. George Orwell, 1984. Okay. I think it's a really good book. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Amadati Okofishola. I will see you when I see you, I guess, next week for sure. Maybe. I don't know. We're gonna see, let the Holy Spirit lead us. Okay. Um, be prayerful, and know that the Lord has your back. Okay. Bye, guys.